There is a moment you meet yourself and don't recognize the face. The smile is familiar. The eyes are not. You look at an old photo and feel the quiet ache of distance. Not because you regret who you were, but because you finally see the space between then and now. Change didn't arrive with fireworks. It arrived in whispers, in the text you didn't send, in the breath you finally took, in the way your silence began to mean peace, not defeat. Transformation isn't an explosion. It's erosion, steady as the tide wearing down the shore. Old music stops resonating. Jokes that once landed feel hollow. You crave solitude, not to hide, but to protect what's becoming sacred. Psychology calls it ego dissolution, the loosening of an identity that once felt permanent. Neuroscience calls it neuroplasticity, the brain quietly rewiring pathways built for survival, not truth. Spirit calls it burial and birth, happening at once. You are both the mourner and the newborn, the one who grieves and the one who breathes again. No one grows up empty. We grow up edited. As children, we learn a code of belonging before authenticity, attachment before honesty. We smooth the edges that got us in trouble. We amplify the traits that kept us safe. We become agreeable, useful, small. Because safety seems to live inside approval. Carl Jung called it the persona, the mask we present to the world. It isn't a lie, it's armor. But armor that never comes off becomes a cage. Jung observed this pattern across cultures and throughout history. He noticed that people construct elaborate social facades, not out of dishonesty, but out of necessity. The child who learned that showing anger meant abandonment becomes the adult who can't access healthy boundaries. The teenager who discovered that achievement earned love becomes the workaholic who equates rest with worthlessness. You get applauded for the mask, promoted for it, loved for it, and quietly, dangerously, you begin to confuse being admired with being seen. The persona serves you until it doesn't, until the roles you play start playing you, until you catch yourself mid-sentence speaking words that don't belong to you. Beneath the applause, something aches, a voice you've been ignoring, a self you've been postponing. And one day the ache becomes louder than the applause. That's when transformation begins. Every repeated thought leaves a trace. Every repeated reaction becomes a groove. What fires together, wires together. Spend years rehearsing self-doubt, and your neurons make it effortless. That isn't weakness, it's biology doing its job. Neuroscientist Donald Hebb discovered what we now call Hebbian learning. Neurons that activate together strengthen their connections. Your brain is literally sculpted by your experiences. That critical voice in your head, it's not who you are. It's a neural pathway worn smooth by repetition. The anxiety that floods your body when you try something new, that's your amygdala doing what it was designed to do. Keep you alive by keeping you the same. But here's the miracle. The same brain that learned fear can learn freedom. Neuroplasticity doesn't stop at childhood. Your brain remains malleable throughout your entire life. Every time you pause before reacting. Question one, inherited belief. Sit with one wave of discomfort without running. You're not just making a choice. You're creating a new neural pathway. Each small choice is a new synapse, a new sentence in the story you tell yourself about who you are. Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist who survived the Holocaust, wrote something that changed the field of psychology. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space lies our power to choose. That space is where a new self breathes. That millisecond between something triggering you and your automatic reaction, that's where freedom lives. Not in eliminating the trigger, in expanding the space. Self-transformation isn't tidy. There is a season where the world that fits you feels two sizes too small. Conversations ring scripted. Rooms that once felt warm feel airless. Even your reflection looks like a role. You forgot you were playing. The 16th century mystic St. John of the Cross called it the dark night of the soul. Not pathology, passage, not depression, though it can look like it. Not breakdown, though it feels like it. It's the psychological equivalent of a caterpillar dissolving in the cocoon. From the outside, it looks like death. From the inside, it is metamorphosis. Jung understood this deeply. He called it the confrontation with the unconscious, a necessary descent before any real transformation can occur. You're not losing yourself. You are shedding what was never you. Modern neuroscience has begun to map what the mystics intuited. When old beliefs collapse, the brain enters a state of heightened plasticity. The rigid structures soften. New connections become possible. It feels like collapse. It is actually neural pruning. Old connections dissolving to make space for what's true. During this time, everything feels uncertain. Your old strategies stop working. The people you relied on feel like strangers. The future you imagined fades into fog. And in that fog, something essential happens. You stop performing. You stop pretending. You stop running. And in the stillness, in the void, you meet the self you've been avoiding. The world loves you consistent, predictable, categorized. The moment you change, you interrupt everyone else's illusion of stability. Your boundaries are called selfish. Your silence, distant. Your honesty, too much. Here's what's really happening. When you stop playing your assigned role, other people's identities destabilize. If you were the caretaker, your rest threatens those who depended on your depletion. If you were the agreeable one, your no forces others to face their own discomfort. If you were the successful one, your pivot into meaning challenges their definition of worth. The philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche called it the tragedy of becoming. We fear evolution because it dissolves certainty, but certainty is a comfort, not a compass. Jung observed that transformation often requires what he called betraying the collective, stepping outside the agreed-upon script, not out of rebellion, out of necessity, because staying in a life that no longer fits is a different kind of death. Expect resistance from your family, who preferred the version of you they understood, from your friends, who bonded over shared complaints you no longer carry, from your own mind, which will beg you to return to the familiar pain. This isn't cruelty. It's the nervous system's last attempt to keep you safe. Your job isn't to convince them, it's to keep walking. No one tells you that growth can feel like grief. You outgrow rooms, roles, rituals. Relationships that once felt like home become houses you can't breathe in anymore. You'll want to run back to what hurts just to feel real again. You'll miss even the chaos, because at least chaos was familiar. Breathe. Loneliness isn't proof you're wrong. It's proof you stop performing. What you're feeling is what psychologists call identity lag. Your inner world moving faster than your outer one. The person you're becoming hasn't fully materialized yet. The life you're building hasn't taken shape. And in the gap between who you were and who you're becoming, there's often nothing. No old friends who understand. No new community yet. Just you and the quiet. Jung would tell you this is sacred ground. This liminal space, this threshold, is where the soul does its deepest work. Not in the comfort of certainty, but in the vulnerability of not knowing. Hold the gap. Let your life catch up to your truth. The right people will find you. Not because you perform for them, but because you stop performing altogether. Transformation doesn't ask you to be fearless. It asks you to be honest. Meet the parts you exiled: anger, desire, grief, shame. Listen to them. They are messengers. Jung called this shadow integration, reuniting what you are with what you avoided being. The shadow isn't evil. It's everything you learned to reject about yourself to gain acceptance. For some, it's rage, the anger they were never allowed to express. For others, it's desire, the wants they learned to suppress. For many, it's power, the strength they were taught was threatening. Integration doesn't mean acting on every impulse. It means acknowledging every truth. Neuroscience agrees. When emotions are felt and named, the nervous system recalibrates. Dr. Dan Siegel calls it name it to tame it. The process of bringing unconscious emotions into conscious awareness reduces their control over you. The loop loosens. The body stops bracing for a past that is over. You stop policing the mask. You start strengthening the core. Integration is the moment you realize you don't have to be perfect to be whole. You don't have to be healed to be worthy. You don't have to have it all figured out to move forward. You simply have to be willing to see yourself clearly and hold what you see with compassion. Real rebirth is not cinematic, it is daily. One boundary honored, one breath before you speak. One evening you choose rest over performance. Stability isn't stillness. It's roots deep enough to bend without breaking. You learn to forgive, not because they deserve it, but because your peace does. You stop chasing validation. You start creating meaning. The new self isn't built in grand gestures, it's built in micro decisions. Choosing the conversation that nourishes you over the one that depletes you, saying no without a paragraph of justification, letting yourself feel joy without waiting for permission. And slowly, so slowly, you almost don't notice. You realize you were never broken, only rearranged. The pieces that shattered weren't flaws in your design. They were invitations to rebuild differently, to construct a life based on truth instead of approval, on depth instead of performance, on integrity instead of applause. The phoenix wasn't escaping the fire. It was becoming it. Stars collapsed to forge light. Forests burned to make room for new roots. Your life isn't failing. It is following the oldest rhythm in the universe, death and rebirth. You stop fearing the cycles. You build temples from your ruins. The cracks weren't flaws. They were doorways. That old photo you couldn't face? Look again. Those eyes weren't naive. They were becoming. Every version of you, every heartbreak, every unraveling was carrying the next you to shore. Self-transformation isn't becoming someone new. It is remembering who you were. Before the world taught you to forget, before you learned to shrink, before you learned to silence yourself, before you traded authenticity for safety, the you that you're becoming, they were always there, waiting beneath the roles, beneath the fear, beneath the stories you told to survive. And now, finally, you're letting them breathe. If this found you at the right moment, stay, breathe, write one true sentence. Take one honest step. You're not breaking down. You're breaking open. And on the other side of this, you will not be perfect. You will be whole. Comment below one word that describes where you are in your transformation. Subscribe for more on Jung, neuroscience, and the psychology of becoming.